Thank you, Deputy President. I would like to thank the Financial Secretary for promulgating multiple measures in the budget, including incorporating some suggestions by Liberal Party, such as regulating basketball betting and various other initiatives. When we have a fiscal deficit of $80 billion, there is a need to develop new revenue sources. We do see many tight measures, but there are still some concessions for the grassroots and the middle class. That is definitely appreciated. In the following, I would like to focus my views on the middle class as well as developing new growth sources. On developing new growth sources, we will have more toll tunnels, and the tunnels will be operated on a cost recovery basis. As a car owner, I understand that it is not ideal that we have to pay more in tolls, but I understand that the government has to develop new revenue sources, and the government is in such a tight fiscal position. I think in future the government can see when the things get better, lower the tolls. And I think we can talk about also charging fees for vessels in typhoon shelters. We actually never had an increase in number of berths while having more vessels in Hong Kong. So we have some unscrupulous individuals charging for the free spaces and asking for money from the ship or yacht owners. I think if we charge for spaces in typhoon shelters, we can increase revenue of the government, but also prevent such unscrupulous acts. We will have in future issue funds for infrastructure development up to $120 billion. But we also have to pay the administrative cost of imported labor for infrastructural development. Why don't we adopt the approach in Macau and Singapore? For different industries, we'll set specific quotas and ratios. On housing, I appreciate the current term government's efforts to improve living standards. For example, the promulgation of basic housing units would definitely help benefit the public, so by promulgating relevant standards. I think we should look to the structural issue with basic housing issues. We need to make sure there is hygiene in the light well as the pipe installations to not only provide better living standards for basic housing unit residents, but also to ensure safety of other residents. Right now, according to government figures, we have 18,000 light public housing units available, and they have over 100% utilization rate. We have provided transitional housing solutions for many grassroots residents, it seems. I appreciate the government's efforts. We should do even more. For subdivided unit tenants, we should have more talks for them to enhance awareness. We can also arrange visits by SDU tenants to the transitional housing and light public housing projects so that we can leverage on the potential brought by the projects. I understand that many SDU tenants are very concerned that they have to move out, and those in the transitional housing and light public housing units are available exactly for this purpose, to alleviate the interim need of such tenants. We will also increase the threshold from $3 million to $4 million for stamp duty threshold, and I believe that would help raise incentives of those wanting to purchase more value properties. I welcome this initiative. I think it will also encourage youngsters or the younger families to purchase their first property. On public housing threshold, I all along thought we should relax the income threshold for those living with their elderly family members. We have those age 65 or above accounting for 20% of the population, 1.75 million people. So we really need to make sure we are accommodating the elderly population. According to the 2021 census, we only have 210,000 elderly persons working. It is lower than many places, including the mainland. We have many elderly family members living with their younger family members because they surpass the income and asset threshold by themselves. So they want to stay with their families, and while trying not to surpass the relevant thresholds, they choose not to work. I think if we relax the relevant income and asset thresholds, for example, exempting those aged between 65 and 75, their income should not be included in the calculation of the income threshold. This will help unleash the potential of the elderly in the labor force. We can also better help develop silver economy. I think with the additional manpower, it can also help populate the employee population in transport and logistics industries, for example. We have to understand those trapped in the middle are faced with much challenge. The middle class are, of course, often those who are facing cut in benefits or cut in tax concessions. And I appreciate the financial secretary providing some sort of support to the middle class in this year's budget. And with the removal of concessions, it's not complete removal, it's just a part of it. But for the middle class in Hong Kong, both the husband and the wife would be working. They have to pay taxes, but then they also need to pay for support of their children as well as elderly family members. They may also need to hire foreign domestic helpers. They do not have much left. And they think the support measures in the budget can only provide little help. I hope the financial secretary would take into the account the needs of different sectors of the community, and if possible in future when their economy gets better, provide more support to the middle class. The Liberal Party has also been calling for the government to promulgate progressive child allowance so as to enhance the living standards of families, especially middle class families, as well as boost the fertility rate. I hope when the economy gets better, the financial secretary can also have more tax concessions for the hiring of foreign domestic helpers. Many middle-aged females told me if they can hire foreign domestic helpers with subsidies, they would be more than willing to work. And I think it is the way that we should go when the economy gets better. Deputy President, right now we are faced with a Sino-US trade war. Every day people are nervous about what is going to happen. The financial secretary has to strike a balance between the needs of different sectors. It is hard to strive for a balance, I understand that, but I hope the financial secretary can try his best to strive a balance to actually meet the needs of different sectors of the community, so that not only a particular sector or two will benefit from the budget's measures. For different sectors of the community, they will be able to enjoy the benefits of the development of Hong Kong in future and to instill confidence in them and for them to have great expectations of Hong Kong. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Chen Chen-ying, when faced with a tight fiscal position, we have a number of measures in the budget to save costs and develop new revenue sources. I think this approach is appropriate. With the introduction of taxes and the increasing of tax rate, it will definitely dampen incentives of investment and consumption. So I appreciate the government's approach to mainly focus on saving costs and only supplementing such measures with the development of new revenue sources. I think we can strike a balance with this approach. The budget responded to the many needs of the public. It also shows the government's commitment. Finance is a core competence of Hong Kong. According to latest reports, while we are still ranked the third in some major rankings, but we are still lagging behind. We are, in terms of financial competitiveness, we only rank the fourth. We do see some innovative measures promulgated by the mainland. I think we should enhance collaboration with the mainland to have, say, dedicated funds to support R&D applications and to enhance exchanges for the nurturing of talent so that we will have more fintech talents in Hong Kong, and that will boost the economy of Hong Kong as well. We have also been seeking to enhance competitiveness of the securities market in Hong Kong. We have some dedicated listing regime. We have also streamlined some listing procedures to facilitate overseas companies to list in Hong Kong. We also have, for the first time, some OTC trading mechanism after the shares have been delisted. It would also help with us developing the ecosystem in securities. It will also boost the number of transactions during the 2 sessions in the government work report. The second part of it is to promote the development of INT. To better tap into opportunities, we need to make sure we focus development of technologies. We have already earmarked $1 billion for the establishment of Hong Kong AI R&D Institute. We have also $100 million to support the upgrading and transformation of enterprises. I believe this will help traditional enterprises in upgrading their structure. On saving costs, we will have a pay freeze for all personnel of executive authorities, the legislature, and the judiciary. Referring to last year, we have a 3% pay raise, so it costs $9 billion. We should be able to at least save $9 billion this year. I think with the pay freeze, the civil servants have shown determination in tiding over the difficulties, but because we have pay increments, we would still have a $1.3 million increase in manpower costs. I think we should limit pay raises to only those with exceptional performance. Say, if we only have less than half of the people who will get pay increments, that would be more reasonable. And in 2027, we should have reduced 10,000 posts. By then, we need to make sure we're adopting an approach. We have targeted reduction in different departments, as Mrs. Ingrid Young said. The Secretary for Civil Service said we need to make sure we are adopting a targeted approach. As other members of G19 advocated, we should have more of a pay cut, and I'm glad to hear that we have a pay cut from 1% to 2% now. With the 800% recurrent expenditure, we are only cutting $400 billion. For the 2% cut. We will not cut any social welfare expenditure or infrastructure expenditure. For the part that is not subject to expenditure cut, we need to control the costs to make sure every penny is well spent. For major roads and tunnels and license fees, parking meter charges, and ticket fines, as well as departure taxes, we will be operating on a cost recovery basis. It will bring about an additional revenue of $4.6 million. While we have various different sources and it may increase costs of transport, I think the government should make sure that we are monitoring the reactions of the public to make sure we are achieving the intended effect. We have illegal betting in Hong Kong that is rampant, and it has been roughly $70 to $90 million last year. We need to make sure there is no longer space for illegal betting. Right now, we are consulting on the regulating of basketball betting with the estimates. I believe that should be an additional revenue of $1.5 billion if we are regulating half of the basketball illegal bets. And we will have $61.5 billion from 6 seed capital funds being brought back to enhance allocation of resources. Right now, we have 42 funds that are outside the government's accounts at the moment. And I think right now there is inadequate transparency as a result. I think from this year onwards, we need to have a more detailed breakdown to enhance transparency of the operations of such funds. With the Northern Metropolis projects, they are starting one by one. We will see rising infrastructural costs in future. We will increase the issuance of bonds to $700 billion. We need to increase cash flows in order to ensure successful implementation of the projects. With the increased issuance of bonds, our debt to GDP ratio will still only be 12 to 16.5%. It is slightly higher than the projection last year of 13%, but it will still be much lower than advanced economies. In Singapore, US, they are all over 100%. In Switzerland, it is also 36%. So our ratio is much lower, but we need to make sure we are issuing bonds at a right timing to control the size of bond issuance. We have also lowered the threshold for small value property stamp duties from, increase the threshold to $3 million to $4 million. This should alleviate the burden on property buyers, especially for youngsters who were hesitant. This will be an incentive. We have property transactions of value between $3 million to $4 million. There are 7,623 of them. It accounts for 14.3% of the total number of property transactions. So I believe with this measure, it will boost the incentive of people purchasing their first properties, but it will also encourage launching of property chain. We have seen in different places simplifying their tax systems and charging indirect taxes in order to maintain sound public finance and to tie in with the latest trends in tax. We need to resolve this problem of a narrow tax base and introduce indirect taxes. I do not see in the budget any initiative to study improving the tax system. I'm very disappointed in that. I urge the government to conduct relevant studies and promulgate action plans to meet the different challenges ahead. Amid geopolitical tensions, we have more uncertainties. We have number of fluctuations in our markets. We need to maintain our vision. We need to make sure we are leveraging on our unique position and implement the various initiatives in our budget and accelerate development through reform and innovation so as to help us overcome the different challenges. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill.
Mr. Dominic Lee, the budget, in this year's budget, the FS has floated the reinforced version of Fiscal Consolidation Program to reduce recurrent expenditure by 7%. There is a reduction of supporting measures for grassroots and the middle class. Some of them have been scrapped. Yes, in the face of fiscal deficit, we need to reduce cost and increase revenue. But how can we ensure that it's done reasonably instead of sacrificing our middle class and grassroots? Is it the case that only grassroots and the middle class are asked to ride out the storm with the government? We face a lot of challenges. There may be economic recovery after the pandemic, but there is intensifying geopolitics. We have increasing interest rate, high prices, and a drop in property prices. These are structural problems. Government revenue has been dwindling while the government is spending more. The fiscal deficit stands at about $62.7 billion. Our reserve is depleting. The figures are alarming. Shouldn't that be the cost for the government to carefully make reductions if grassroots and small and middle class people are the only one who sacrifice, then people will lose confidence in the government. In an ancient writing, there is a saying, people are important. It means that people are the foundation of the nation. You need to protect the lives of middle class and grassroots to protect the nation. If they are affected, then the nation will be affected. When I was a district councillor, my constituency was a middle class one. I fully felt the difficulties they face. Middle class have to handle education expenditure, property cost, healthcare cost, low salary. Well, I'm no longer a district councillor. There is someone who lived in my constituency. He lost his job during the pandemic. Wife had to have a pay cut because of poor business in the company. They have to support a child. They have to save. They have to borrow. Well, this person has found a job after the pandemic. The salary level is lower than that before the pandemic. Well, there's been some reduction of subsidies and the scrapping of the 2,500 student grant. I think it's adding salt to the wound. Has the government considered the plight faced by the middle class? The middle class is an important pillar of our society. They work hard, they pay tax, but they receive the least support from the government. How come that every time when the government wants to reduce expenditure, it's done at the expense of the middle class? There are other alternatives. Miss Young is here. Mrs. Young is here. We have a sizable civil service, 180,000 people. Well, the emolument accounts for 40% of the expenditure. Of course, there are professionals and dedicated civil servants serving the public, but there is redundancy. For certain departments, there is a low operational efficiency. There is also duplication of work. Hong Kong people knows it well. When it comes to reducing expenditure, how come it did not start with making the civil service leaner? There is an audit report. It says that there is a resource wastage in a lot of departments, some over $100 million, but very But it's very rare when we see an accountable official being held accountable. We need to reduce resource wastage. We need to reduce recurrent expenditure, increase operational efficiency, and improve the image of the civil service in the public. There'll be a reduction of 10,000 posts by 2027. A lot of these reductions are achieved through freeze in recruitment as well as cutting of vacancies. So that is not a substantive measure. You may introduce a pay freeze, but there is still increment. Well, you see there are practice to streamline the structure using AI. You need to show determination. If it's just patchwork, do you think it will in the end work? It will be the grassroots and the middle class that suffer. We have a humble request. We just ask the government to face the plight with us. Don't sacrifice the grassroots and the middle class. The government should start from themselves. They should reduce administrative costs instead of shifting the burden onto grassroots and the middle class. Don't put more pressure on them. Hong Kong has weathered storm after storm. We have expectations of the government. We ask the government to listen to the public and ensure that resources are allocated in an even way so that we can have a sustainable future, so that we can see real prosperity and stability. Grassroots and the middle class can enjoy their lives. This is the real way to show that people is the foundation of the nation. And the nation will be strong when these groups are protected. Mr. Rock Chen, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2025. We're in a time when the external environment is complex and ever-changing. We need to transform and upgrade. We need to find new growth area. We have to be careful with our financial situation. It's not an easy task. The U.S. has imposed a reciprocal tariffs which seriously undermine international trade. It may overhaul the global trade order. The Hong Kong MA, the government, have launched a number of initiatives to respond to these measures. The government needs to conduct analysis and studies to assess how much impact there will be from the tariff war. Say, for example, if there is a nosedive of the capital and property market, can they receive as much as they think in stamp duty revenue? If our very existence is threatened, that is in relation to SMEs, shouldn't more support measures be launched to help them? I can't give you an exhaustive list. I think the most important thing is for the government to conduct comprehensive assessment and put in place reaction plans. Now I come back to the budget. When it comes to explaining and presenting the budget, for the first time they have separated the operating account from the capital account. This gives a clearer picture to the general public about what the financial situation is. We don't want to see the consolidated account going red for a number of years. We face challenges. We have yet to complete the transformation and upgrade. The government needs to reduce cost and increase revenue, the former being the focus. Development of emerging industries takes time. You need to put in resources for over a long time to get return. In the past 2 years, GDP has registered a positive growth. Still, the government has a huge deficit. The deficit may come from structural problems. It may not be 100% cyclical. If you rely on economic development to reduce deficit, then you need to seriously consider focusing on cost reduction. The government has announced a number of such measures. Can they be enhanced? I have some observations to make. First, the government needs to have accurate figures to gauge the effectiveness of the measures so that they can fine-tune the allocation of resources. There should be expedited a transformation using technology. We see AI developing very rapidly. The government should, on a larger scale, use AI to increase efficiency and effectiveness of government operation. Obsolete posts should be removed. There can be internal training to redeploy the persons involved. There should be a review of time-limited supernumerary posts. The government has launched a number of good measures, but now we have a tight budget. Is it inevitable? Is it a must that we extend the time limit of supernumerary posts? Can we delete unnecessary process instead of going the easy way by extending the time for such posts? The government should not scrap subsidy that benefit the people. It should be a more targeted approach. Those who are in need should get the subsidy, and at the same time the government will not spend when it's not necessary. The source of revenue is limited. There are problems. We need to expedite our transformation and upgrade. We need to find new growth points. We need to enhance our international competitiveness and find more source of income. In this regard, I also have some suggestions. We need to take into account our situation, further develop new quality productive forces. We need to leverage our R&D capabilities. We can make use of the GBA manufacturing chain. There is a huge domestic market in the mainland. There are plenty of opportunities. We need to assess the impact of policies on industry development. The government needs to have a better understanding of policies and regulations on industry development. When we want to further develop our economy and our industries, there needs to be a review of our existing policies and regulations. We need to properly manage risk while helping industries to develop. In addition, we need to remove barriers. We're now helping emerging industries that use new quality productive forces. We need to streamline the administration. We need to relax and lift restrictions. We need to remove barriers to promote innovation and technology. We need to diversify our source of income. The government needs to consider how to broaden our tax base by introducing new taxes. When our economy recovers, the government should take the initiative to restructure our public finance to expand our source of income. to make sure that our finance is sustainable. I would like to use the remainder of my time to talk about strengthening our position as an international financial center. That includes the use of fintech as well as a digital asset. We need to enhance the market mutual access mechanism with the mainland, development of family offices, and build Hong Kong into a prime asset management center. All the policies the government have in place are good. When it comes to pricing or price setting of IPO and the capital market, the government needs to review the regulatory regime. The level of shareholding of each stock should be lowered. This will be conducive in attracting investors. Price discovery process should be done upon negotiation so that will reflect the actual situation. This ensures that the needs of institutional investors and the market will be met. In relation to TECH, it will be conducive to attracting INT enterprises to be listed in Hong Kong. We have the CAP 18A and 18C listing mechanism. I think we have favorable condition to attract more enterprises that use technology to come to Hong Kong. The U.S. has just given an alert that certain stocks will be delisted in the U.S. market. We are an international financial center. We need to swiftly look into possible supporting measures for these China concept stocks that may be delisted to come to the Hong Kong market for secondary listing. I speak to support the budget.
Mr. Yim Kong. Thank you, Deputy President. This is a very challenging time for Hong Kong. When it comes to the external environment, there are tariff hikes from the U.S. The global supply chain is being restructured. We need to stabilize the economy and improve livelihood. Against this backdrop, how can we strike a balance between economic development, financial sustainability, and improving livelihood in Hong Kong? This is a problem that we need to solve. The government has taken on board our views, say improving the CIES and revolutionize public services fees. Overall, this budget strikes a balance between financial sustainability and improving livelihood. It is worth our support. With different challenges, I suggest that the government ensure long-term healthy, sustainable development of Hong Kong. One, we need to enhance our positioning as offshore renminbi center. We need to enhance the appeal of the local stock market. We are the largest offshore renminbi center around the world. We need to seize upon the opportunities to expand the application of renminbi in the world. We also need to enhance the financial system. We need to enhance the internationalization of renminbi. We need to enhance the coverage of renminbi. We need to encourage the setup of more renminbi counters for different stocks. We should also encourage cross-boundary investment. This will bring patient capital to Hong Kong, and this will also enhance the connection between the mainland and Hong Kong. There should be more hedging tools and we need to actively attract more Chinese enterprises to come to Hong Kong. We also need to set up the commodity ecosystem. The tariff war launched by the US forced the global supply chain to expedite their adjustments. This has posed a significant challenge to Hong Kong. The LME should be encouraged to be included. We should promote Hong Kong as a delivery warehouse of the LME. We should also enhance our influence as a commodity ecosystem. More support should be given to attract more enterprises to come to Hong Kong so that we will have the cluster effect. We should also make available cross-boundary settlement by way of delivery warehouse. We need to groom talents and expedite the development of hotel area. INT is the core of the development of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is facing difficulties when it comes to developing technologies in Hong Kong. And it really takes talent to make it happen. In relation to the Northern Metropolis University Town and Hotel area, we need to attract schools and educational institutions to set up premises in the university town. We need to offer programs in ocean science, aviation, aeronautics, so that more students will be encouraged to study science. That's exactly how we can groom talents. We also need to enhance the MPF mechanism so that there will be better protection for members of the public. External uncertainties affect MPF. The government should enhance the MPF mechanism to diversify the risks. In the coming 5 years, every year, the government will issue bonds between $150 billion and $195 billion. The bond issuance mechanism should be enhanced. Say, blue bonds should silver bonds rather. Members of the public should be allowed to make greater flexibility when it comes to managing their MPF. We need to develop smart and green ports. The global supply chain is being restructured. Logistics costs will rise. We need to enhance the operational efficiency of the ports in Hong Kong. This will reduce the operating costs. The port community system will be set up soon. It will facilitate the provision of real-time information. It will enhance the efficiency of the operation of ports. Enterprises should be encouraged to devote more resources to automation in order to enhance the operation of the port community system. In relation to land leases, rather, green bunkering should be encouraged. The future of Hong Kong is fraught with challenges. We must innovate and stay pragmatic when we continue to reform. We need to have more resolve. This is exactly how we can upgrade and innovate, conduct reform, and create a better and more prosperous future. I hope the administration will work together with society in order to strive for improvement. I support the Appropriation Bill 2025. Mr. Ma Fengkok, Deputy President, we have a fiscal deficit of $100 billion. We are in the middle of adjustments. There are trade wars globally. It's actually not difficult, well, not easy at all to compile a budget against this backdrop. That's why I didn't dare to pin high hopes on the budget, but the result is quite acceptable. There are areas worth our commendation, but there are also areas where there is insufficiency. We need to promote the development of new quality productive forces and develop AI. The direction is definitely correct. Hetao, Northern Metropolis, these are key to the development of Hong Kong. The development of NDAs in the coming 2 to 3 decades is very important. In the 2025 to 2026, there will be pay freeze for executive authorities, legislature, the judiciary, and members of the district councils. Having a pay freeze against the current backdrop is tiding over the difficulties with society as a whole. If we were to have a pay cut, this would cause a huge impact on the private sector as well. The budget also makes savings without affecting public or statutory public expenditure and social welfare expenses. There is a reduction of its expenditure of 2%, and this will continue into 2027 to 2028. A total of $62.4 billion of recurrent expenditure will be saved. The government said that there would be zero growth in relation to the civil service establishment, but then there are also applications for supernumerary positions. From $500 billion to $700 billion, accounting for some 12.6% of the GDP, I support this move. The debt ratio is still within an acceptable range. Members of the public are passionate about looking for reliable investment tools. Bonds are indeed a very good tool. The work report of the 2 sessions also mentions something along the same line, so I suggest expanding the scale of bond issuance. I'm concerned about the development of culture, tourism, and sports. We should promote the development of culture, sports, and tourism so that we will promote Hong Kong as an East meets West center. We will develop 30 projects, and this is actually very challenging. I hope that we will see good results. In the past, I've seen many development opportunities that could not be seized upon. Arts production shouldn't be limited to professional artists. We should leverage on AI, and non-professionals can also create their works or their work. In mega art events, the ADC organized the first expo last year. We attracted a lot of artist leaders, totaling about 1,600 to Hong Kong. It was a good platform for global or international artists to interact with local artists. We should also make good use of the Mega Events Fund to organize activities in Hong Kong. This will help Hong Kong to become an international East meets West center. The fund was enhanced earlier this year, despite a better mechanism which could support even more high-quality mega events. Only a maximum of 10 events could be supported every year. It means less than one per month. I hope that the government will increase the number of activities being supported, at least one per month. The movie industry is also facing a lot of challenges. In 2024, 9 cinemas were closed. I hope that the government will devote resources to boost the development of the cinema industry or the movie industry. In relation to land auction, more support should be given to cinemas. The government at that time did make a pledge, and I hope that the government will reconsider this proposal. Drawing reference from overseas jurisdictions, we need to encourage movie companies to produce even better movies. The government should see how we can make good use of existing cinema resources or movie resources in relation to sports. Basketball gambling tax was floated. This will increase the tax revenue of the government. If we could make it happen, there would be a positive contribution to the sports industry. Betting duty is commonly seen to boost the local economy. According to statistics, bookmaking brings to Hong Kong about 15 billion illegal revenue. If we could make it legal, then we will bring 1.5 to 2 billion tax revenue to the government. However, at the same time, we need to prevent pathological gambling. We need to enhance the support to local sports industries to ensure a sustainability or sustainable development. The budget outlines the development plan for Hong Kong, but then there's a lack of measures that can help Hong Kong to resolve the problems we are in. It also lacks supporting measures for the tourism industry. It is actually a core pillar of the local economy. Now, outgoing Hong Kong people outnumber incoming visitors. Many people in Hong Kong say that after 9 p.m., Hong Kong has become a quiet town. In off-peak seasons, cruises should be provided with discounts for them to be berthed in Hong Kong. But then, will people spend? There is also the APDT and there is also the boundary facility fees. It's said that passengers won't mind the increase in the APDT, but then we can see the administration's attitude towards visitors. We shouldn't let it hinder our economic recovery. We need to attract transit passengers to spend 1 or 2 days in Hong Kong. Well, I don't understand the rationale behind the boundary facility fee. If we are going to impose the fee only on vehicles, do you want to prevent vehicles from going north? For southbound vehicle scheme, will there be a fee? Deputy President, the budget adheres to the principle of keeping the expenditure within the limits of revenue. Premier Li Qiang talked about quite a lot of measures to stimulate internal or domestic circulation. Can we get any inspiration? I hope we can achieve a win-win situation. I support the Appropriation Bill 2025.
Mr. Martin Liao, Deputy President. When faced with 3 years of fiscal deficit and the complex geopolitics, I think the budget has been pragmatic and would aid enhancing Hong Kong's competitiveness. We have seen a pay freeze for all personnel of executive authorities, the legislature, the judiciary, and members of district councils. This shows commitment of relevant personnel to tide over the difficulties with the public and the government's commitment to a goal of achieving fiscal balance. The budget has also been quite innovative and includes measures of investing in the future, and these instilled confidence in people. I'm very glad that the Financial Secretary incorporated multiple suggestions of G19 members, including my suggestion on enhancing governance of departments and other public bodies by enhancing the governance of Audit Commission, as well as constructing a mega events economy, etc. We have been trying to save costs, but we also need to develop new revenue sources. We cannot wait until when we get into a weaker economic phase to only start planning. We should start planning early. The budget proposed to increase air passenger departure tax to $200 and on a user pays basis, tunnel tolls will be reviewed. I think this is a correct direction to take. But if we are to charge a $200 boundary facilities fee, I have reservations, especially for private commercial vehicles traveling between mainland and Hong Kong. This can be burdensome on the operators operating the services. I would say this, Deputy President, even when faced with a deficit, we need to continue to invest in the future to build more capacity for the development of Hong Kong. And in this year's government work report, we are to continue to develop AI Plus and to invest in smart production equipment. And we should develop emerging industries with great potential. I'm glad that we are reserving $1 billion to establish the Hong Kong AI R&D Institute to promote commercialization of upstream, midstream, downstream AI applications, develop more use cases. I'm also glad that we have another scheme to support smart production capabilities of enterprises. We have a $10 billion industry-oriented INT funding scheme. I think most importantly, we need to engage the business sector. I think the government has to do more. With the AI development threshold getting higher than ever, the Hong Kong AI R&D Institute should work with enterprises and tertiary institutions to work together to develop AI. AI can not empower industrial applications at the moment. This is a disadvantage of Hong Kong. If we are developing vertical large models, we in future should ask enterprises to make available more data. And we should also introduce more AI enterprises to set up or expand their operations in Hong Kong so as to promote digitalization of various industries in Hong Kong. The budget was announced in February, and the Financial Secretary said that at this time of change, we need to continue to stride forward. We should promote cooperation with different advanced economies to set up more regional networks. With the U.S. imposing more tariffs, this is especially important. We need to adopt a GBA thinking to make sure there is integrated development so that we can complement our advantages in development. If we are just developing individually, we cannot achieve synergy. And at this time of change, the government should take a few steps further to help SMEs to meet challenges amid uncertainties. And in the government's work report, we have talked about boosting consumption, and there are various consumption boosting measures that were promulgated later by the mainland, including opening up the relevant sectors and developing more use scenarios of consumption. I believe the mainland will promulgate even more measures to boost consumption in future. The government should help Hong Kong enterprises tap into these opportunities, create a Hong Kong brand, and develop products that would meet the latest needs of mainland consumers. On developing Latin American, African, ASEAN, and Middle Eastern markets, we need to adopt innovative thinking. Say for Latin America, they are well poised in natural resources. I think we can work with them to develop commodity trading. Next, I want to talk about development. We are long restricted by land supply, and I am glad in development of the Northern Metropolis, the government is going to make a significant investment. In the budget, we will develop the Sandy Ridge INT Park as well as Hetao Cooperation Zone and Santin Technopole to have more land available for INT uses. And we have also earmarked sites in Hetao for enterprises to promote up mid downstream INT applications. This has injected vitality and instilled confidence in enterprises in development of Northern Metropolis. 22 expressions of interest were received for the development of Northern Metropolis, and I think we need to adopt a market-oriented approach. We need to consider first the bidders who have great potential, not just the highest bidders. We also need to allow those developers who will only pay premiums based on what they build so that they don't have to pay significant land premiums. We can also adopt a bonus sharing arrangement with developers. It should incentivize more larger scale developers take part in the development of the Northern Metropolis. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. When faced with various difficulties, the government has to make difficult decisions. The BPA submitted a policy statement to the Financial Secretary to make sure we have various measures that will benefit the livelihood of the people. There are various measures in the budget that would include issuance of bonds to support the development of the Northern Metropolis and other infrastructural projects. We have also seen the stamp duty concession threshold increased to $4 million to cover properties from valued at $3 million to $4 million as well. I am very glad that there are various measures in the budget. We have this year $87.2 billion in fiscal deficit. Compared to other advanced economies, the figure is actually not that high. I think what is important is we are developing new revenue sources. We have seen a prosperous stock market this year. It's probably because of the prosperous development of INT in the country. And these are the fruits borne by the country. While we enjoy and reap the fruits borne by the country, under one country, two systems, we should leverage on our advantages of having connections both within and with the outside to develop new revenue sources so that we can get out of this deficit situation as soon as possible. The Northern Metropolis will be a future engine for growth for Hong Kong. We need to accelerate the pace of development for the Northern Metropolis. We should earmark $3.7 billion for the development of Hetao Corporation Zone. We should reserve 90 hectares for the development of the Northern Metropolis University Town. We also have the Government Sustainable Bond Program and the Infrastructural Bond Program. I support these programs for the financing of projects. The issuance of bonds for the investment of future is appreciated. I am glad that the government adopted an innovative model in working with developers and having innovative tax incentives to attract leading enterprises to set up or expand their operations in Hong Kong. I also appreciate the government has streamlined administrative processes to instill confidence in investors. For the different Northern Metropolis projects in the next 5 years, we will have the cost increase from $90 billion to $120 billion. The government also will provide various subsidies on the job training allowances for the construction industry. I think that is also a vote of confidence for the construction industry. It is worthwhile to encourage the industry to make use of the latest technologies in construction to help increase efficiency. And I think we should also review the various lists of projects and contractors so as to ensure there is an even distribution of projects. In order to better integrate into the country's development, the government, SAR government, has worked with the Guangdong provincial government or authorities to put in place a professional titles mechanism, and it will soon be expanded to other trades. I hope that it can be expanded to the other trades and even the other industries as much as possible to enhance mutual recognition of qualifications. We do have to increase government revenue, but we should also make sure some of these revenue generating policies will not go against our policy vision. One of the measures proposed in the budget is to charge a $200 boundary facilities fee. The society has had heavy or has reacted poorly to this because this is against integration of Hong Kong into GBA. It is also not conducive to the arrangements of northbound travel for Hong Kong vehicles and southbound travel for Guangdong vehicles. The budget also proposes to increase the $120 air passenger departure tax to $200. This has also dampened short-term visitors' interest to visit Hong Kong. Let me first declare I am a board member of the Airport Authority, but I'm not speaking only from the perspective of airport operations when I talked about it. Now, for the visa fees for tele-admission schemes will be increased to $600, and depending on the duration of stay, the processing fees will be $600 or $1,300. These came into effect upon announcement in the budget. This has seriously affected talents who have applied for talent admission schemes. And for those professionals who are poised to perform in Hong Kong in Cantonese opera performances for only 1 or 2 nights, they are also charged. It is not conducive to the development of culture, sports, and tourism in Hong Kong. I also note that on 1st of April 2027, we would have cut 10,000 civil service posts. I hope that the government will not adopt a uniform cut. And I'm speaking on behalf not only of myself, but also of the trade that I represent, so as to not hinder the development of various projects. We should, of course, enhance administrative efficiency. So we should have, as soon as possible, a development blueprint 3.0 for government operations, for INT development, so that we can promote digitalization, enhance interdepartmental coordination, and better make use of cloud computing, big data analysis, and set up a central data management system, develop City Brain, and have a one-stop portal for government services, and include all government and NGO partner services under I Am Smart to create a comprehensive network, enhance administrative efficiency, and in turn enhancing efficiency for society in general. Donald Trump has started a tariff and trade war. It has brought about uncertainties, but Hong Kong has its advantages of having the support of the motherland and having connections with the world. We should better integrate into the development of the country. During the 2 sessions this year, the country is continuing its efforts in high quality opening up, and there are various opportunities to tap into here. We should grow a bigger pie, boost the economy, and improve the livelihood of the people. The BPA recently issued a report on tapping into the opportunities of the 2 sessions and have various suggestions on stabilizing the markets of Hong Kong and how we can better tie into the national strategy to better our role as a super connector and a super value adder. We should have dedicated funds to attract capital, investment, and talent. We should, through these funds, attract more enterprises, top-notch enterprises to come to Hong Kong. That should help us deepen our ties not only with the mainland but with other markets, and these will help consolidate our 8 centers positioning. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill.
Mr. Robert Lee, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2025. In the budget, we see a number of measures to cut costs and increase revenue. We want to ensure that there is financial sustainability and continuous development of the 8 centers. The coverage on international financial center has increased compared to that of last year. We see that there is a high importance attached to the development of this center. We see the increase in tariff, and there is the start of the trade war. It has caused shockwaves in various markets. However, our country is developing steadily. The CPG advocates a high level of opening up and a multilateral trade relationship. The work report of the government says that Hong Kong should play a role in deepening international cooperation. We need to make use of advantage of being well connected with the world. We will play our role as a super connector. Opportunities should be seized to work with the trade for the sustainable development of our financial market. There is a national strategy. We need to work in 3 areas. First, expedite market reform, enhance overall development of this sector, as well as intensifying cooperation with other markets. In terms of the first area, in the past 12 months, the Hong Kong index has increased by about 30%. For Standard & Poor's of US, there has only been an increase of 7%. It shows that our market is superior. For the daily turnover, there is an increase up by 1.4 times. This year and last year, we have seen daily turnover of over $600 billion. We have a large number of companies getting listed. There is an active market with a lot of listing as well as transaction, but some enterprises do not benefit. I asked the government to review the GEM and help SMEs that cannot get listed in the main board to be listed in secondary markets here. Assistance should be provided to provide support to relevant services. I'm glad to see that there is a relaxation of various requirements, say for example, review of the board loss system. Prudence should be exercised before delisting an enterprise. There should be flexibility. In relation to OTC transaction, retail investors should be allowed to participate. If there are restrictions to institutional investors, there should be relaxation of the eligibility of institutional investors. Interest rate of cash deposit collaterals should be enhanced to benefit the market. The sector is concerned about potential cost in the uncertificated securities market regime. In the enhancement of development of financial services, I'm glad to see relevant initiatives. When it comes to fixed income, virtual asset, and gold exchange, these markets should receive support to make retail transactions easier. This will meet the needs for fixed income products. In building Hong Kong into a gold exchange, we need to support national policies. We need to first understand what the PBOC advocates. Progress should be carefully monitored to ensure that the sector will be able to dovetail their work. Well, there are smaller operators, larger operators. There are jewelers involved in this sector. We need to release our potential. Retail investors should be allowed to be involved in various products in virtual assets. In terms of futures and derivatives, well, the types of products in futures traded over holidays should be enhanced. There should be support for transactions to take place in Hong Kong. Enterprises of different sizes should be involved and should engage in our market. In terms of enhancing cooperation, In the budget, there are measures that look into the expansion of scope of cross-boundary wealth management connect. Additional investment products, private equity funds should be made available to meet the needs of high-value investors. We need to promote cooperation between Hong Kong and mainland security companies. We need to enhance publicity and sale of cross-boundary products under the Wealth Management Connect. The industry is actively pursuing initiatives to enable online services to be for market participants. Overseas clients, local clients should be able to open an account remotely. There should be overseas delegations to help SMEs to tap into the Middle East and ASEAN markets. Hong Kong is an externally oriented economy. The current external environment is difficult. We need to leverage our advantage of being connected with the world and being supported by our country. We need to use our advantage. We make use of a physical financial system. We need to develop new industries, find new growth points for high quality development. We need to enhance the international cooperation as well as regional cooperation. We need to seize upon the opportunities. We need to get China concept stocks to come to Hong Kong to be listed again. I'm sure that we can show our resilience to ride out the different storms. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill.
Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, President. We are almost 1/3 into year 2025, and there have been major changes in the geopolitics as well as local circumstances in Hong Kong. As the trade war rages on, we face some serious headwinds, and the bullying acts of the United States are affecting Hong Kong, which is an open economy. We also have some internal challenges such as an aging population and transformation of industries, and that is why the SAR government must be visionary in tiding Hong Kong over the storms so that we can be strong and self-reliant. I thank the Financial Secretary for this year's budget. There are measures on cultivating new productive forces in Hong Kong. There are also other measures to exercise fiscal consolidation so that Hong Kong's economy can remain sustainable and resilient. I support the budget, and I have the following views. President, the population forms the fundamentals of modernized development. High-quality development of the population is crucial to modernization of the Chinese nation as well as Hong Kong's development. As President Xi suggests, high-quality development of the population can create a prerequisite for high-quality development of the country, and that is why we should also adopt the same strategy, and with vision we should consolidate our policies to promote demographic changes so that we head towards high-quality development and create greater capacity for economic development. In paragraph 234 of the budget, Financial Secretary mentioned demographic changes and its impact on our resources. Now, we have three major areas of spending: welfare, healthcare, and education. These three areas have seen a 60% share of the recurrent spending in Hong Kong. If aging population gets more serious and with a low birth rate, we will continue to see increase in public spending, and this will cause a fiscal crisis. On the contrary, if we're able to transform the industries together with demographic changes, we can also import labor, and after planning holistically, we will be able to keep the books balanced. We can keep the spendings under control. We can also have a more balanced budget with a stable stream of tax revenue. We will be able to tide Hong Kong over, but that means we need to come up with a comprehensive population strategy to cope with demographic changes as well as the impacts on our economy and our society. The fiscal consolidation program should be put in place so as to stimulate consumption and to generate more benefits for our economy. This is the only way out in tackling the aging population and promoting high-quality development. President, Hong Kong people enjoy longevity, and we also have the lowest birth rate. The government in recent years have put forward different measures to promote childbearing. Our country, in fact, earlier floated childbearing subsidy. And likewise, days ago, the Macau government announced something similar. Now, we have family-friendly employment policies, but there is a lot more to be decided. We need to stay bold in reform, and we need to break new ground and continue to innovate. Now, regarding childcare services, daytime childcare services, according to the reply from the government in the special FC sessions, only 2,418 places were available in the past 2 years, but we had 70,000 babies born in the same period, and that means the service rate is less than 3.5%, and we have 29 babies striving for one place, and we could only increase dozens of places per year. We dish out resources in drips and drabs. We could not solve the problem at all. I am of the view that the government should keep all options open against the backdrop of limited resources. For example, enterprises should also draw up policies on providing childcare, and kindergarten could be expanded to cover services for newborns up to 2-year-olds, and this will be a better solution. According to the government's budget, there are over 11 measures for talent admissions, and the word talent itself has been mentioned 38 times. Is crucial to our city's competitiveness. We need to respond to our country's strategy, which is to build 3 centers and 1 hub, and that is why we need to build Hong Kong into an international talent hub or international hub for high caliber talents. We have a number of scholarships, such as the Hong Kong PhD Fellowship Scheme, Belt and Road Scholarship, as well as the One Test Multiple Certification Arrangement. These are essential to building a talent pool, but we still need to do more in terms of high caliber talents. For example, we need to provide employment support services for graduates staying behind. We also need to provide immigration support so that talents will stay behind upon graduation. The budget also refers to the nurturing of local talents for different sectors, such as the Greater Bay Area Youth Employment Scheme as well as the YTP. I support these schemes. However, for those in-service practitioners, it is equally important to provide the continuous education for them. According to government's reply to my questions at the special FC session, less than 1% of these funds have exhausted the less than 1% of the users of the fund have exhausted the 25,000 subsidy, and 87% of these accounts still have more than $15,000 in their accounts. The government should consider the reason why the utilization rate is so low. Has it to do with lack of time for continuous development? We need to do more by working with the training institutions to enhance competitiveness. We also need to drive innovation. The budget also refers to the same policy. We need to engage our young people as they are the leaders of society in future. So I'd like to respond to the youth policies as well. I support the government's response to the four needs of the young people. For example, there are support measures for young entrepreneurs. There is also a well-designed startup scheme on a pilot basis. It's called Wellbeing Startup Program. It will be expanded to private sector as well. It is hoped that there will be more collaboration between public and private sector to encourage wider participation among young people. There is also another measure, that is the maximum value for properties chargeable to stamp duty of $100 will be increased from $3 million to $4 million, and this can help young people meet their home ownership needs by saving stamp duty costs. It can also help them in terms of renovation and the procurement of furniture. We also need to enhance international collaboration. I support the relevant schemes so as to widen our young people's horizon and to foster cultural exchange. Article 107 of the Basic Law provides that the government must follow the principle of keeping expenditure within the limits of revenue in drawing up its budget. Now, I support the government's reinforced fiscal consolidation program, but in the long run, we need to find ways to address the deficit. For example, in terms of capital works expenditure, we should slash unnecessary expenses. As for other livelihood-related spendings, there should be more discussions among government departments so as to gauge the impact should these measures are scrapped. For example, for subsidies for students, it's a kind of a livelihood item, and this student grant, the scrapping of this student grant may have an impact on parents. As for the air passenger departure tax, if the proposal is passed, this can help increase government revenue, but this can also undermine the aviation sector. So we need to gauge the outcome. I hope that the government will follow this year's budget as it exercises fiscal prudence in light of changes unseen in a century and the current economic landscape. We need to meet future challenges. To maintain robustness in our financial system, we should also create opportunities for our young people. I support the bill.
Mr. Scott Leung. Mr. Scott Leung. Thank you, President. The budget this year is more than just financial accounts. It's also a blueprint. It's about meeting challenges in the economy and planning for the future. I thank the Financial Secretary and his team for hearing from all sides, racking their brains, and then coming up with this budget. The focus of the budget is on containing costs, containing administrative costs, adjusting charges and fees, investing in key areas, finding new growth points. That's to meet our current needs and also keep up with trends in the economy so that we can continue with our steady economic recovery, and then we can find new opportunities for different industries. I will comment on housing and tourism. Now, for housing, in June this year, we will end the cash allowance trial scheme. The remaining balance, $2 billion, will go back to the coffers. The scheme now gives thousands of dollars of allowances to people waiting for PRH flats. That money matters a lot. It's lifesaver. So before we end the scheme, let's think this through. Take Shamshui-Po, for example. A family of three. They live in an STU, 100 square feet. They have been waiting for PRH flats for 6 years. The son has ADHD, and every month they spend thousands of dollars on follow-up consultations with their private practitioners. So the few $1,000s of cats means a lot. Another family, also on cats, every month they rely on the breadwinner, the father, for the $20,000 income. They spend $7,000 on the STU. When you ask the student grant and you ask cats, that's $10,000 gone per month for this family. Poverty relief shouldn't be something you scale back just when you have a fiscal deficit. Let's wait till the light public housing is in place before we end CAT. The second batch of LPH flats will see intake this year. Altogether, all LPH flats will total roughly 10,000 flats by the end of this year. By then, there will be more housing options for STU residents and take pressure off them. So my suggestion is we should extend CAT to the end of the year so that there is continuity. If we cannot make changes to ending CAT, let's use the remaining balance in the coffers to provide support. We have the community care fund. There is a special one-off subsidy. So for the $2 billion going to the coffers from CAT, let's put $100 million into this pilot scheme so that we can help more residents. Let's beef up the current subsidies or provide extra subsidies for applicants with children. Let more STU residents apply for LPH flats or TH flats. That's to improve their housing condition. The budget also proposes a pause on putting up commercial sites for sale, and also some commercial sites will be rezoned as residential sites. Last year, we saw a high vacancy rate of Grade A office buildings. So this proposal is realistic, and rezoning commercial sites into residential sites is also something you can help you meet commercial market needs. Let's look at Kai-Tak CBD2. The focus back then was commercial development, and then some land was rezoned into residential sites. And because of this inconsistency, there were controversies. So let's learn our lesson from the experience, and let's take a careful look at our plans. We should be assessing the carrying capacity of each district. Let's consult district stakeholders to make sure there's ample discussion, there's support. Now, on housing, the $100 ad valorem stamp duty will now apply to flats up to $4 million. This will make it easier for young people to get on the housing ladder. Young people will get to save on tens of thousands of dollars on AVD. And that will also be good for the secondary market of white form flats. Those flats cost somewhere between $3 to $4 million. So this change will speed up turnover of those flats. This means PRH residents and also the sandwich class will be able to move up the housing ladder. Now, at 10 public housing estates, there will be a smart initiative. There will be Internet of Things. There will be robots. There will also be a centralized property management platform. Technology can help with estate management. But smart estate measures should be more than cutting costs. Let's put people first. We should be using technology to make life better, easier for people. So for housing estates under the housing authority, let's adopt smart cards. Let people tap their card and then they can enter the building. Let's use the Octopus card. Everyone has it. I talked to the Octopus company. They said if the government is willing to adopt smart cards in the form of Octopus cards, the Octopus company is willing to waive the fee. So let's adopt smart access with smart cards, and that can make those estates safer, and that can also make life easier for the management companies. Now, tourism. It's a pillar of our economy. We have seen fierce competition from neighboring cities in recent years, so we should offer diversified experiences to get more tourists to come here. The budget proposes developing our coastal areas and the cruise tourism and yacht tourism. Now, one proposal is to develop the waterfront area near Hong Kong and also putting refreshment stalls in place in Tsim Sha Tsui. Waterfront development needs to be in line with local conditions. I have been calling for more flexible use of waterfront areas, such as the Changsha Wan food market. After the market closes at night, let's open the area, and let's also use the ferry pier nearby to organize food markets. There are community calls that for Tai Kok Tsui along Hoi Fai Road, let's set up a water sports center. Let's do paddle boarding in that area. Let's also set up a coordination mechanism for our water economy. So can we do day passes for a trip on water? Let's set up markets so that people can enjoy the water. Now, on cruise economy, there will be $46 million going into an initiative to get more cruises come here. A mainland cruise used Hong Kong as the home port, and that brought in many tourists. We need more cruises here. We need to offer a better experience. At our cruise terminal, there are no retail or F&B facilities. Tourists arrive from a cruise here, they simply have to take public transport to somewhere else. So let's improve the commercial facilities around the terminal. We should offer concessionary rent to have more stores, souvenir stores, for example, so that people can shop right outside or right near the terminal. When people take the cruise to the mainland, they get visa-free access. So people can catch a flight here and then they can take a cruise to the mainland. Or people can take a cruise to Hong Kong from the mainland and then they catch a flight in Hong Kong. That can turn Hong Kong into a cruise hub. So let's improve our cruise terminal. Let's improve the baggage arrangement. Let people check in their baggage and then their baggage can go straight to the high-speed rail terminal. In the long run, let's also work with the other cities of the GBA. Let's work with the mainland cities and organize multi-destination tourism. People get on a cruise in Hong Kong, they can go to Macau or Zhuhai. And let's also let overseas visitors go on an in-depth journey in the GBA. The US is going on a reckless spree of tariffs, so we have to plan with care. We have $100 billion in deficit and we have to cut back on certain items. But we have to put people's well-being first in what we do, and let's put the resources where they matter in a targeted way. On housing, we need more land. We also need continuous support for grassroots. Put public money where it matters. Let's improve people's lives. On tourism, let's do what we do best. Let's offer unique experiences to drive our economy. I support the Appropriation Bill 2025. I'm convinced that we can overcome the challenges now and move on to a brighter future. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Michael Teen. President, we're in one of the toughest crises since 1997, and we're in an economic transition. We have to reduce our recurrent costs. As other members have said, for anyone in business, if you have a temporary problem, you have to tighten your belt. If you have a structural problem, you will also have to seek transition on top of cutting back. So you have to invest. Let's start with savings. Let's talk about civil service pay. Many companies are considering a pay cut. A pay freeze is a very moderate approach. But we have pay increments, so you're not really containing the expenditure on civil service pay. The secretary said this is not an automatic pay increase. Let's look at the figures, 170,000 civil servants. Only 21 people out of nearly 100,000 people at scale maxima who did not get an incremental jump. So more than 99% of them got a pay increment last year. So let's be more stringent. A 70 to 80% passing rate will be more sensible. So this year we will need $7 billion just for the pay increment. And 2 years altogether, you will have to spend way more money on that. The chief executive's office is spending millions of dollars on offices for former chief executives. My problem with it is whether it is valid for money. Now, a former chief executive will move back to a government office, but that office will be redeveloped. So you spend $2.8 million on renovation, that's money down the drain. Why not find somewhere where you don't have to move again in a few years' time? So we have an office on Kennedy Road for former CEs. Now, I want to turn to the $2 scheme. I thank the government for adopting the idea of round table, meaning 80% off when the fare is more than $10. This is not about short-term savings. It's about rationalizing the scheme so that it becomes sustainable, and this can fix the problem of taking long-haul routes for short trips. To truly save money, you should be cracking down hard on abuse. There are 800 gates at the MTR stations. 2 Mun to MOT, it's $29 in fare. There are people who need to travel outside districts. Some companies hire couriers. When they do want to abuse the scheme, they can save $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And when the penalty for abuse is only $1,000, that penalty is not going to do anything. So we should increase the fine to $3,000 to $5,000. As for buses and minibuses, we should simply amend the law, empower drivers to check the photo ID of a passenger, and then we can stamp out abuse of the Draw Your Card. But the government has refused, so I will ask for more prosecution figures. And we have many pieces of major infrastructure. We need them for our national strategies. Let's make the most of it. Our construction costs are high. One reason is the high wages. So let's find a new model of importing labor. Those workers can come to Hong Kong for work and then travel back to their home place of origin elsewhere. And they only work on infrastructure projects for national projects such as Hong Shui Kiu Qianhai project, Northern Link project. In those cases, those imported workers don't have to be paid based on Hong Kong's median wage. And that can mean massive savings for Hong Kong government, and our taxpayers will benefit. I've covered savings. Now let's talk about investment. Should we borrow? How much do we borrow? And this will have to do with the northern metropolis. There were many people in the NM. We will need rail. If we don't do public-private partnership, we will need to borrow more. The Highways Department will pay 70% of the costs, and the MTRC will only pay 30%. This will be faster and cheaper. You don't need so many departments to give approval. So the PPP model should be adopted for all new rail links in the NM. If you rely on the MTRC alone for their own bond issuance, that is not the way to go, because they're also struggling with finances on their own. The financial secretary said our debt to GDP ratio will reach 12 to 16% of our GDP. Our country's own ratio is 80%, US 121%, Singapore 175%. Let's look at a GDP of $3 trillion. Even at 40%, that's $1.2 trillion, still low by global standards. I also support the idea of developing seven-lane town. Let's get the project right. We need hotels, we need transport. Let's do a 4-lane highway linking up the airport and the HZMB. Let's turn that into something that can rival Guangdong. Shenzhen is already doubling the number of their hotels. Why are we falling behind? Our tourism and mega events lack infrastructure. So that's why I proposed a racing circuit in Sunny Bay. When the Development Bureau talked to me about reclamation, they said they didn't have a plan for depot or race circuit. They only wanted infrastructure for mega events. So I proposed a race circuit. I got support from the community. So we have Disneyland, we have Kai-Tak. I was hoping that we could have another form of infrastructure, and then it turned out the depot became the dominant project. I took issue with this approach. So let's get the reclamation review done quickly. I've also been following the Kao Yichao reclamation project. I'm not after the land to be created. We have plenty of land in the NM. My problem is the Hong Shui Kiu Qianhai rail link. Without the islands, that rail link will get into trouble. Now, we have been hearing about large-scale land development. We have been told about the 2-mile line, Hong Kong-Shenzhen rail link, and the Hong Kong West to Hong Shui Kiu rail link. We have been told about the excellent linkage of rail. We got 22 EOIs. By the 31st of March, subcommittee on the railways, the most important rail link between Hong Kong Island and Hong Shui Kiu, that link was gone. Why was it we were told about this rail link during the talk about large-scale land disposal and then it was gone? What happened? After 2034, there will be more than 10 million visitors from Shenzhen in Hong Kong. How can we cope without the rail link? Can the government tell us how we can cope with the visitors? Now, on where we should be spending. First, the government is pausing land sale. That should include residential sites. We need to stabilize our property market. The government thinks the property market has bottomed out. I take issue with that. One problem I have is with the sewers of Yunlong, Park Heng, Pingshan, Hachun, Kemtin, and Santin. It's called the 6 areas. They have many trunk sewers, but the branch sewers have yet to reach the villages. So the villagers are stuck with septic tanks, and there's a strong stench, poor hygiene. How can you call Hong Kong an international city? Because for that, we met with the Yunlong District Council. They say the Legislative Council is useless. They were invited to share their views, but we cannot show them results. I don't want to be criticized, so I got in touch with government departments for a meeting. 6 villages. We need 8 such branch sewers. Many projects have been initiated. We just need $1.8 billion. I asked for a timetable from the department, but then the departments did not give me a response. We got nowhere because someone up there did not give approval. So the government has simply moved on to other things. You started a project, but the project was left alone because the government kept working on new projects that came their way and leaving aside ignoring the old project. Now, on the tunnel tolls, the round table thinks user pays cost recovery. We should not be making profit from tolls. Otherwise, you will see pure chaos in all your policies. I support the Appropriation Bill.
President, the political landscape has become very uncertain. The Trump administration launched a trade war with our country. This has disrupted the global supply chain. Given that the U.S. has imposed a tariff of 145% against Hong Kong and our country, and it is said that they're going to raise it further to 240%. This definitely undermines our import, export, and re-export industries. The so-called trade war and tariff war launched by the U.S. is an invasion in a form. The SAR government, including the business sector and the people of Hong Kong, should not be scared. We must unite and solve this risk and problems together with the people of our country. So I support the Appropriation Bill 2025, and I'd like to talk about how we can plan for the future of Hong Kong in 3 different areas. From Trump 1.0, we have been in a trade war for 9 years. The business sector and the people of Hong Kong know that we should develop new markets on top of the American ones. We should promote ASEAN, a global South, and a Middle East market to reduce the risks brought by the U.S. trade war. The Trade Development Council and the CEDD plays a very important role. Now, in terms of trade business, the SAR government must explore new markets. They should support enterprises in integration into the national strategies. We have the advantage of having the support of our country and being well connected to other countries. Unlike other economies, we have a substantial internal market that will allow our enterprises to look for a way out. On January 2024, the Prime Minister Li Qiang said that we have over 400 million middle class in the country, and it will go to 800 million in a few years' time. The demand of service will increase. There is great potential of consumption. in a upcoming summit, our enterprises will be able to uncover import and export opportunities. The business sector should actively look for potential opportunities and see if we should organize more conferences. The SAR government must support the local enterprises in entering the mainland markets. As the chief executive has said, we must step up our collaboration with other countries and places to mitigate the risk brought by the trade war. The Belt and Road Office of the CEDB have only spent $40 million last year with establishment of less than 22 people. I wonder if the government has enough resources to prepare ourselves for the trade war, to lead our enterprises to look for new opportunities and to promote our strengths. Now, in terms of support measures, I'm glad to see that the policy address has injected $1 billion into the BUD fund, and the scope of e-commerce has been expanded, and the government has injected an extra $750 million into the fund. So altogether, we have an extra of $1.75 billion in the fund. This has shown the government determination in supporting our SMEs. And I think that the government should expand the scope, the geographical scope of the fund to Belt and Road countries, to enhance the ceiling of support for SMEs under e-commerce easy. And we should also subsidize enterprises to have their staff undergo e-commerce related courses. As the global supply chain is restructuring, the government should take this opportunity to develop new business and industries. We should collaborate with more partners on aviation, legal, dispute resolutions, so on, and we should work together with mainland brands to transform our market. I think that the Invest Hong Kong and the Trade Development Council should lead a delegation visit to different cities in the mainland to attract capital and investment. And we should also work with the mainland authorities to ask them to set up a branch office in Hong Kong so that we can go global together. I hope that the government will look into my suggestion and help enterprises in overcoming the challenges that they're facing. I have the following two suggestions. On the financial aspect, I think that the government should continue to improve the mutual access regime together with the mainland. We should increase the variety of products, deepen and widen our market. We should vitalize the stock market and increase the revenue that we generate from the stock stamp duty. Because we usually have $10 million of, $100 billion of income, but last year we only collected $50 billion. FSTB should create a commodities connect to further strengthen our ties with the mainland stock market. And we should also lower the threshold from $500,000. And we should also increase the number of renminbi-denominated stocks in Hong Kong so that we can include more renminbi-denominated stocks into the Stock Connect. And I think that the Education Bureau and the Development Bureau should speed up the development of the Northern Metropolis University Town and expand the scope and scale. Through this university town, we can drive the development of the entire Northern Metropolis and contribute to the INT development of our city. And it is said that the Institute Land Exchange period for Hong Shi Kyu Ha-Chin is going to be extended, and it is said that the government has received 7 Institute Land Exchange applications so far. They are going to postpone the deadlines for 4 of the projects so that the government can offer more flexibility to potential developers. I think that in order for us to attract developers and investing in the Northern Metropolis depends on whether the government can offer them more incentives, such that developers are willing to make medium to long-term investment. Currently, we are turning ourselves into an international post-secondary education hub. I believe that University Town will be able to allow us to attract more talents for investors. This is definitely attractive. We should develop high-end residential developments, student hostels around the university town. However, some trade practitioners said that Hongshui Hachun NDA has only reserved 5 hectares of site for post-secondary education hub. For Lingnan University, they have only 8 hectares. So I think that the Development Bureau and the Education Bureau should look into the details of the university town. Please give us a plan by 2025 instead of 2027. We should increase the scale of the university town from 90 hectares, and the Education Bureau should let us know their blueprint within this year. We don't have enough student hostels currently. We need to build more to incentivize the developers' participation and to drive up the investor sentiment in Hong Kong. I believe that under the leadership of the Chief Executive, we will be able to overcome the challenges and transform our economy. President, I so submit. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill. Thank you. Professor Chen Wing-kong. Thank you. President, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2025, hereinafter referred to as the budget. Under this budget, we don't have that many sweeteners as compared to the past ones, but I see that given the uncertainties in the external environment, the Financial Secretary is trying to reduce expenditure and create new revenue. All JJOs, district councillors, and the civil servants will have their pay freezed or frozen. This has shown the government determination in cutting expenditure and riding out the ties together with the people. The rates reduction has a ceiling of $500. For CSSA recipients, they will enjoy an extra half month's pay. This shows that the government cares for the community, and we are going to set aside $1 billion for the AI R&D Institute. This will expedite the development of the Northern Metropolis. This shows that the government is leveraging on INT to promote the high-quality development of the economy. I think that this is a budget that shows the government's determination in cutting expenditure and raise people's confidence in the city. In the following, I will talk about the development of Chinese medicine in Hong Kong. By the end of this year, we're going to publish a roadmap for the development of Chinese medicine, and we are going to build a Chinese medicine hospital by the end of this year. I'm glad to see that in the reply to my question, the Health Bureau said that they have set aside $230 million to build the Chinese medicine hospital, and the testing and certification center will see an increase of 29 positions to cope with the operational needs of the centers. I think that apart from setting aside money to support the operation of the two centers and hospitals, the government must try to make sure that the relevant projects can be commissioned in time to support the high-quality development of Chinese medicine in Hong Kong. I'm also glad to see that in the budget there's reference to a development of Chinese medicine. We have a great medical system, medical talents, and technological outcome. We have all the conditions to develop medicine into an industry. Our advantage is particularly clear with Chinese medicine. Now, in terms of clinical testing, international trading, we have clear advantages. Given the complicated international landscape, now we are faced with a trade war. The geographical and political landscape is unstable. I think that we should develop medical services as an industry. I hope that the government will roll out more measures so that we can leverage on our advantage to promote the development of Chinese medicine so that it can become a new driving force for our local economy. The budget said that in the first half of the year, we're going to have a monitoring center for medical equipment and drugs. That is a primary evaluation approach. I think that that will enhance our quality and promote the development of clinical testing, and this will turn Hong Kong into an international medical innovation hub. Now, in terms of primary health care, the budget said that the Central and Western, Eastern, and Yaoqing Mo district health centers will become district health center express. I support it, and I think that we should adopt a district-based approach to offer medical service. We should focus on prevention instead of treatment. As I've said multiple times, the role of Chinese medicine is not prominent in primary health care. For the chronic illness co-care program, the Chinese medicine has no part to play. This limits the development of Chinese medicine in primary health care. So I think that the government should adopt measures and dedicate more resources in the development of Chinese medicine so that it can help promote primary health care and play a bigger role. Medical and healthcare expenditure is something that people are concerned about. The budget said that we are going to improve the system. A few days earlier, the Health Bureau announced a fee structure reform. In this financial year, the government has spent $111.3 billion on its current expenditure. That accounts for 19.6% of the total recurrent expenditure of the government. Given our aging population, I believe that the relevant expenditure will continue to go up. I support the government in reforming our medical system to make sure that our public medical service is sustainable. But I think that the government should continue to review the fees level of the public hospitals. But we also have to have regard to the hardship faced by the middle class and the sandwich class. Now our economy is faced with a challenge and there are a lot of uncertainties, but with the support of our country, as long as we are united, we will be able to grasp all the opportunities that we can and develop our economy. I so submit. Thank you.
Dr. Junius Ho. President, it is with a heavy heart today that I speak in this council. This is an occasion for me to talk about this year's budget, and I'd like to express my grave concern. Starting from 2022, 23, 24, for all these years, I have been raising the same concern, and that is the government must abide by Article 107 of the Basic Law, that is to uphold the principle of keeping the expenditure within the limits of revenue in drawing up its budget in order to achieve fiscal balance. And the emphasis here is that we should avoid the deficit. These are not novel concepts. This is entrenched in the Basic Law. In 2022, we recorded a deficit, and at that time I already emphasized that we needed to abide by Article 107. In 2023, again, our books were in the red, and I once again emphasized that the government must ramp up its effort to address the deficit issue. And at the time, the deficit recorded was $118.6 billion. In 2022, it was $91.4 billion. In 2024, according to the estimates, we will run into a deficit of $143.9 billion this year. It's just simple math. Revenue totaled at 659.4, spending billion, spending 82.3 billion, and then deficit $162.9 billion. So that's a year-on-year increase. Of course, according to the revised estimates, these figures may somewhat vary slightly. But in general, what we are seeing is deficit. This is undeniable fact. My fellow members just now expressed appreciation for the Financial Secretary's efforts, and I can't deny that the Financial Secretary has indeed been doing his level best, but it is not good enough just to do the level best for somebody in the high echelon of government like the Financial Secretary. We must work on two fronts in order to reverse reverse the trend. Now, we can talk about the external factors and that we have the motherland's backing. I think we can save the talk. But in essence, in order to be a competent Financial Secretary, he must have talent and he must have courage. Now, our Financial Secretary is talented, of course. This is the 9th budget drawn up by the Financial Secretary this year. His work started from 2017-18, and this is the 9th budget this year. He's been working very hard, but among the 9 budgets, deficits were recorded in at least 5 to 6 of them. I'm sure there must be reasons why the book is in the red. I am sure that he's done his best to avoid the deficit. So in other words, there must be some challenges that he is facing. Now, the next quality is courage. So he has talent, and I acknowledge his efforts. Now, the second quality is bravery, fortitude, courage. When he's out of money, of course, he can't just pretend otherwise. So the pay for electrical members, exco members, so on and so forth, will be frozen, but this is just a drop in the ocean. This is not even a drop in the ocean. This is just minimal. What is important is to downsize the government and weed out incompetent civil servants. Now, the target is to cut 10,000 posts. That sounds quite impressive, but tell me, after paring 10,000 jobs, how much have we saved? That's a $2 billion saving. Is that right? Or $200 million saving? We haven't had any concrete answer. In fact, last week at the Special Finance Committee meeting, members pursued this line of questions. We asked why, despite a drop in the number of posts, the expenditure still goes up. And that's a really humorous answer coming from the government. That's because of the increment. And that is pay increment. In fact, I put this question to the government. I talk about RTHK's budget in 2020. The budget for RTHK in 2020 was $1 billion with an establishment of 750. The establishment included contract staff as well as outsourced staff for different productions, and the budget totaled at $1 billion. Why is it that years down the road, this figure has increased by 55% to $1.5 billion? Where do we see the growth? Because we already scrapped the contract posts, and we no longer need to produce that many programs because we are procuring programs from the CCTV and the CGTN. And in the past few years, we only saw, in general, an inflation rate of slightly over 1%. And why is it that for staff remuneration, it has gone up by over 50%? If I were the financial secretary, surely I would not give the green light. Last year, the budget stood at $1.3 billion. The budget should be slashed down to $1 billion, and the RTHK should figure out how it should survive on its own. This courage is essential because we're short of money, and that the fiscal reserves already dropped from $100 billion to, $1.1 trillion to $600 billion. We need to pull the purse strings tight. And in fact, for the new term of government in Macau, for the 9th consecutive year, they are dishing out handouts to everybody. It's a small place spanning 300 square kilometers with just less than 1 million in the population. Even for non-permanent residents, they get $6,000. What about us? The answer is outright no. We have a dwindling reserve. According to the Constitution, 2 special administrative regions have been set up, and this administrative region is much larger, and yet the fiscal reserves have dropped to $600 billion. Why is this happening? We need committed officials who do the gatekeeping for us courageously. So, a warning for the government. If these are unnecessary expenses, then we should say no to it. We need a brave financial secretary to draw up a balanced and healthy budget. This is the 4th consecutive year that I referred to Article 107 of the Basic Law when I talked about the budget, but the government is still ignoring me. Even if it lands on a deaf ear, I will go on. I will say this once again. I'm not going to support this year's budget. So submit. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Thank you, President. Our economy has been subject to external headwinds. The pace of recovery has been slower than expected, not to mention less than expected government revenue. And this year we have recorded a deficit again. We of course need to spend within our means, but we also need to consider the impact on people's livelihood. Now the budget has proposed a number of budget control measures such as the Productivity Enhanced Program in 2025-26. The up to 2% of government spending should be cut instead of 1%, and the arrangement will continue until 2027 to 2030, and altogether 7% of the budget will have to be slashed. I think this is a rather pragmatic goal. If we set too aggressive a target, some government departments may never be able to meet the target, even if they pull the purse strings tight, and by then the government departments will slash livelihood-related items. And there is a question as to whether the public will accept this approach. I understand that the government is not proceeding with the formulation of a poverty line because of the inadequacies. What about the government's poverty alleviation measures? The community living room program covers only a narrow scope, and the Strive and Rise program is only for grassroots students. Some people are still living in subdivided units, and they have yet to enjoy the light public housing. The cash allowance trial scheme will wrap up in June this year. And in the past budgets, there were other measures such as electricity subsidy and also extra pay for CSSA recipients, PRH tenants, etc. And the extent of the amounts have decreased substantially. Unemployment rate has gone up from 2.8% to 3.2%. That means some grassroots are now out of job. Some elderly grassroots may need to pay $100 or even several $100 more in taking public transport. It is envisaged that the issue of poverty will remain in our society. The government is also scrapping the student grant of $2,500. I understand that because of the indiscriminate nature of this grant, there is reason to scrap it. But for the cash allowance trial scheme for subdivided unit tenants, it should be extended at least until they are given LPH offers. This is only just for the purpose of poverty alleviation in a precise manner. In 2020, it is said that for low-income earners, the contribution will come from the government, and upon full operation of the EAMPF platform, details will be announced, but we have yet to hear anything about it. We have some ultra-low-income earners earning less than $10,000 a month. There is a need to improve their retirement protection through MPF as a way of poverty alleviation with precision. The government should rethink their approach. I hope that even against the current backdrop, resources should be dished out to help the underprivileged groups. Last year, the government rolled out a trial scheme on re-employment subsidy, and over 30,000 people have signed up for the subsidy. That shows the effectiveness of the scheme in enlisting the jobless to join the workforce again. In the next few years, according to the projection, we have shortage of manpower in several skilled trades, and this scheme can help women join the workforce, especially in this skilled trades again, in order to alleviate the manpower shortage. Now, I am of course not supportive of those who do not take up any employment just for the sake of a subsidy. But then for women, they look after the family, they may have other restrictions, they may not be able to work for prolonged hours, they need flexible arrangements, and for some sectors, they also face other difficulties such as high rent, poor business, and high costs, etc. So this form of subsidy could help employers recruit the manpower they need. It's a long-term investment. The government has remained committed in investing in future developments such as infrastructure developments. There will be a number of projects coming on stream. There will also be other major construction projects. For the capital works expenditure, the figure is expected to go up from $90 billion to $120 billion. Now, with a substantial drop in the number of projects, many contractors and the construction workers are facing difficulties. These public projects will help tide them over. We need some new projects to benefit more contractors and different workers in different trades. The government will also increase the size of bond issuance in order to raise funds. The debt to GDP ratio will remain at 12 to 16.5%. Comparing to other places, this is still a very robust figure. Raising funds through infrastructure bonds is common practice. The government should continue to exercise fiscal discipline. The funds raised should not be spent on recurrent spending. The government has also proposed a number of revenue measures, such as charging applicants of talent admission schemes and the CIES some fees in order to recover costs. Education is one of the three major areas of spending. For children of applicants of Top Talent Pass scheme, they are eligible for subsidized places in our universities. And the government also provides subsidies to public sector schools and DSS schools. The objective of the TTPS is to attract the talents to come and work here. Allowing dependents and the children to study here is just one of the supporting measures. So we should reconsider the level of subsidy. Now, for the Category C top talents applicants, they probably have just graduated. They may not have children. For Category A talents, they earn over $2.5 million a year, and with that amount, they may not mind paying more for school fees. So we should adjust the amount to alleviate pressure on the public office. The government will also invest in the the government has invested in building tunnels and roads and adopting a user pay principle. The government will review these transport-related charges. According to our discussion on Thailand tunnel tolls, many members believe that the costs should be recovered, and that should be the major consideration. But according to the government, they also need to regulate traffic flow. This year's budget proposes that the tunnel tolls and road tolls will be charged on the user pay principle. That seems to tell us that we have been benefiting from the government's largesse. Now, if that is the rationale, then tolls could be charged on even the use of pavements. I think the government should explain very clearly what the user pay principle and cost recovery principles mean in reviewing these charges. The government should also consider how people could afford the charges, especially for the commercial vehicles. I support the Appropriation Bill.
Mr. Jesse Shang. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I support the Appropriation Bill 2025. The budget this year comes at a time of economic recovery problems and also geopolitical uncertainty. With this volatile, uncertain macro environment, the government sticks to the steady progress approach and is trying to drive innovation, improving people's lives. The budget lays down a number of measures. We have a deficit of $87.2 billion. I believe this is the aftermath of COVID. The budget proposes long-term and short-term measures that meet the aspirations of the community, and there are steps in a gradual journey to balancing the books. So we're easing the pressure and we're also meeting our long-term needs. Donald Trump in the US started this global tariff war and they singled out China. No one can expect to sit pretty. On the 15th of April, we had the National Security Education Day. We learned that with this constantly evolving macro environment, our government's policy needs to put security first. We need to turn crises into opportunities. So here are our thoughts. We need dynamic policy making. We need to balance different interests. Managing public finances should be more than just numbers. lawmakers are not just bargaining with the government. Let's also think about the deep-seated issues behind policies. We have to guide the community. We shouldn't just be senselessly criticizing the government. We have to help people understand what's at stake so that policy rollout does not lead to confrontation but instead contributes to harmony. Let's take a look at the healthcare visa and charges reform. The Secretary for Health told us about the 4 major challenges in our public healthcare system. None of it has to do with money. Resource misalignment, waste, and shortage of services. The government subsidizes 97.6% of public healthcare costs. People pay less than 3% of the real costs. The reform will fix the structure, and this will be done in 5 years' time. This healthcare reform will make sure that the finite resources go to those most in need. The message we need to send is the thinking behind this reform. We want people to consider the fact that people have to pay for public health care. The point is to pay a bit more for a shorter wait. We have to bear in mind the changing conditions in the community as we adjust our policies. This reform will not lead to more revenue, but we can shorten the waiting list. And that's also important. We shouldn't just be thinking about these factors ourselves. We should be telling people about our thinking. We all have an obligation to shorten the waiting time for public health care. Or take the municipal solid waste charging scheme. It's not about money, it's about protecting the environment. We spent much time discussing that. Or take the $2 scheme. We're now introducing a cap of 240 trips per month. The secretary said just a handful of people will be affected. We're saving a small amount of public money. But we have to bear in mind the greater benefits we're reaping. And we also have to get more outside capital to come in. We have yet to see the full impact of the tariffs. We have been a free port. We do not impose retaliatory tariffs. We are a separate customs union. We are unique. Outside capital looks for havens, and that's what we can offer. We are now among the top 3 financial centers. We can hone our competitive edge. We can improve our listing regime. We can get more A shares and companies listed in the US to come here. Now, I'm a founder of a business community. I have led a delegation of businesses, entrepreneurs to the authorities. It's good to bring top-notch businesses to get listed here. How do we get mainland and also overseas companies to come here, and how do we bring outside capital to come here? In 2023, I was the first to argue for relaxations on mainland capital coming here. During the 2 sessions this year, we put forward a motion to allow top talent coming here easier access to their money to buy properties. We want them to come here. They need money to buy a flat and start their business. So we should be looking at ways to make it easier for incoming talent to bring money from the mainland. So my suggestion is that we should be allowing people to bring in $100,000 here. We should let incoming couples to bring in money equivalent to $100,000, and that's just one pot of money. Now, we should allow people to bring in another pot of $100,000. That's for down payment for their flat, and the third pot of $100,000. The third pot is for starting a business, paying business paying their office for their office's rent or wages, and the fourth part of $100,000 should be allowed for the school fees and also renting a flat or healthcare for the children of these children. But we all have to start with the first part of $100,000. Those people should be able to use the subsequent parts of the money only after they use up the first part. Having this scheme in place will complement our existing Top Talent Pass scheme. Now, let's look at what a Swiss expert has said. They said China is moving fast with INT. We're moving ahead of the US because the US relies on their universities and capital, but China is moving fast with commercializing technology, and that's reflected in its transformation, and that's why China is overtaking the US. For Hong Kong, we need more incentives for investment. We need integration into the GBA. The government needs to learn from the experience elsewhere in fostering INT. We should help and also invest in INT so that we can reap the benefits. Let's also make use of incentives. One proposal I put forward was to set up an INT incentive scheme. We're the only place in China without such incentives. In Guangdong, they have such incentive schemes. In Macau, they have 3 incentive schemes for INT. Hong Kong lacks this kind of scheme. Now, if we can just spend a bit of money, say $1 billion Hong Kong dollars, let's set up an award scheme. Let's encourage INT. I hope this can be rolled out. We should also think outside the box so that we can raise revenue and lower costs. We know everything is expensive in Hong Kong. Lawmakers from the construction sector have called for reforms to reduce costs. My suggestion is to work on the procedures. From what I know about talent admission, it's a zombie project. You have top talent, you have quality migrants. But those quality migrant schemes are a zombie scheme, and you need manpower to run those zombie schemes. There are project measures in place, but they become zombies, and you have to keep putting resources into them. So let's fix that. Let's take this bold step and make good use of civil servants. Once again, I thank the Financial Secretary for showing us this budget with warmth and depth. And there is foresight, it shows good judgment. So let's move faster and also weather the storm and keep moving forward. And so submit. I support the 2025 Appropriation Bill. Mr. Kenneth Lau.